Welcome to another episode of Comics That Influence. This is episode 45. Jake and I are going to flip through some stuff that's influential on us. So, Jake, you got a short stack, you said?
Yeah, not too much here,
Okay.
but maybe 10 pieces.
Well, I was doing some cleaning in the basement archives and found this. I always thought I had a copy of this, and lo and behold, I did. Now, this is a kind of sought after thing. This is Gil Kane, Blackmark, and it's on the Wikipedia, the first American graphic novel. Now, I'll
Huh,
get into that in just a second, but I'm not going to crack the spine on this. I'm going to try not to. But
yeah.
really, their definition of a graphic novel is a lot of words with a lot of pictures. Like it's a pretty. I mean,
It's
there's
not
even
really a
like
graphic, it's
balloons
not
and
really
stuff.
sequential art. That's really like prose mixed
It's
with.
and that's what I want to talk about. So yeah, before we like the story, I just want to give like some like just background on this real quick. It's Gil Kane, so you don't know who he is. You know,
One
wake
of my
up, smell the
favorites.
coffee. Yeah, he's a real tough one to not become obsessed with for a while. Now, one of the other things for me is that he's a huge sword and sorcery pulp follower. So really, this book is templated off of Edgar Rice Burroughs, the Princess of Mars, John Carter, Man of Mars, that whole stuff that everybody has been templating over and over and over again. It has the prophecy storyline in there, so a child is then going to be brought up in the ways of weirding and metal and steel and swordsman, and there's a princess, and so there's nothing to really speak to the story itself, but the art and the structure of the book is really what I want to go on with. Now, this is 1971. I just actually got this in the mail, which is another sought after paperback, a vintage paperback, Thundar, Man of Two Worlds, same type of thing, 1971. So, for reference, late 60s, like 68. I mean, going back to 65 with Elric or Melibone with Michael Moorcock, sword and sorcery becomes this really big ticket item for sales, not only in comic books, but more importantly in paperbacks. So Bantam strikes a deal with Gil Kane based on a proposal he sends out to the. Let me just grab my Wikipedia page real here quick so I don't speak too crazy like.
This was Gil Kane's storyline?
Yeah, this is all Gil Kane. I think there's some Archie Goodwin in there,
Yeah,
supporting him. Yeah,
there
he's
is.
he's the writer, is Archie Goodwin. But this is a Bantam Books. So Kane pitches it to Bantam Books. Oscar Diestel, who was the CEO. Um, it ends up it ends up really piquing interest, but unfortunately, I think just ends up dying out on the vine, because there's nothing else that really comes after this. Um, so we have this artifact now. This does get restructured, laid out, designed into one of the magazine formats. So there is a
Uh-huh.
Blackmark magazine that you can get, and it's all the same art, just rearranged and everything, for that. But it is the number one thing that has me not liking it is just how damn small it is. This is a
Yeah.
paperback book, which is, let's see, I just want to double check here. This is 7 inches by 4 inches, and to
That was a very
to really,
standard size that was happening back then. Um, so that they all fit in rows on the same shelf and the
I,
same
I was
distance.
just going to do that, so that's why I grabbed this one. So you got this bookshelf, and you're looking for stuff, and you get Thundar. and then you got black. You pull it out, and you're like, oh man, what's this and everything, and then all of a sudden you open it and you're like, whoa, this is comic books. So
Well,
now
yeah,
it
I mean, there it's very prose heavy, and it's kind of like what I was just mentioning before, like a great like illustrated zine page. Um, right? That's a lot more text on a page than you see in a comic, and
yes,
so
yes.
this is real like barrier breaker here, right? This really like pushes the boundary,
Well, the
but
definition that they're using for American graphic novel is the context of it being in a paperback. So it's writing being illustrated in a paperback. So the comic book thing is really, I think, Gil Kane's, because like I said, the text will run over into these word balloons. So that's a super cool thing, to have in reading a novel. But the whole other part of it for American graphic novel is it's a self-contained story. So it's not that there's going to be a follow up. There's Gil himself, self portrait. There's going to be a Blackmark too, although I'm sure there could have been, just like with Edgar Rice Burroughs and the Mars cycle, the Venus cycle of his stories. He could just keep taking the same characters and same place and situation and create more disaster and evil to battle and everything. But I back in the
yeah, look
day
at
to
that.
run what
Wow,
the foot.
he's got the
Yeah,
foreshortening, right? This is
somebody
71.
going to life drawing. Somebody went to life drawing class.
Is this 71? You say?
This is 71, and he had been working
Yeah.
on it for a year. So this is the heart of everything pulp, science fiction, sword and sorcery, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Robert E. Howard, just revivalism.
Well, this is
And
Gil Kane at the top of his game. 71.
yes,
This
yes,
is also
yes,
like Neil Adams has really set himself apart.
yes,
I would say Gil Kane and
yes,
Neil Adams are two of my, my most
yeah.
important favorites. Um, you're also saying very interesting use of gray tones and zipatone
Oh,
screens.
it's
That
amazing.
all has to
It's
be cut
amazing.
film. I don't know if
Yep.
they actually credited anybody for that. Gil Kane might have just submitted like a rough sketch or a dummy, to the bookmaker on, I want this to be light gray, this to be dark gray, etc. Um,
Wow. What a good question.
maybe they just did handed a Xerox over and they just put like 10%, 20%, 40%.
Wow.
Um,
What a really good
because
question.
some of those gray tones are very very dark, which is fine. But I'm just pointing out, the how unusual this is. First of all, to open up a paperback and see this. Like, if you're just looking at this on the bookshelf, if you don't crack the book, you're never even going to know that this is inside like this, right? Um,
Yeah.
and this is also the time period where you're competing on the shelf for all these, like, all the sci-fi writers were competing for space, and this was right around the time period generally where um, the Frazetta covers all come out on the paperback versions of these
Yeah.
like shot down Robert E. Howard and Edgar Rice Burroughs paperbacks.
Yep.
I
Yep.
remember reading them when I was a kid because you can't afford
Yep.
a hardcover, right? Um,
Right.
and and these are worth something now. I just looked up this dark, what is it called, Blackmark, and
Yeah.
somebody just sold a copy of this for $40.
Yep. Yep. They
So
are.
if you see these in your local bookstore, definitely pick them up. But yeah, you're seeing the artistry here of Gil Kane. Look at all that. Look at that. What is he doing? He's cracking the hell out of a female there.
Yeah. This is the evil guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smacking the crap out of a girl.
Yeah.
You got some real interesting angles. Very
Kills her
cinematic.
too.
And then, I would be interested in reading this because Archie Goodwin's, one of the better Marvel writers at that time, scripters, plotters. except it looks like they're kind of breaking free here of the Marvel confines, right? And they're getting into some subject matter here
Really
that's
good
maybe a
point.
little more
Yep.
violent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're definitely, this was testing how things would be digested when it comes to this type of material. You know, pulp driven comic books and paperbacks, trying to find a world of rest together. And I think the other thing that kind of, I don't know, bothers me about this is it, are the white spaces. Now, white spaces usually don't bother me, but I think because of the paneling structure, like your number one criticism in anybody's comic book page is, why is this blank? Like, can we use this for something? Um,
Yeah,
you
I mean
know,
these pages look like they got reformatted for paperback.
it definitely. Oh, they most definitely have. Now I love the font. Now I would love to get
Bring it up
a
close so we can
font
see the
like
font.
this.
Oh wow, yeah.
Isn't
So
that
that's
sweet?
it's kind of like a Geneva feel to it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's like a or Futura. It's like a condensed font, which means
yep.
that they might have they might have been really trying to conserve space and get a lot and but you
But
know
the like even the spacing, like you can see how things start
right. I
spreading
mean this
out
this
because
is
they're trying to keep it as a block of text. Which, you know what? Now to think about it, I bet you if this wasn't blocked in as text, like it just ran, like
justified. Yeah.
it. Yeah, it would. I think it would almost have a different feel.
Yeah, I mean,
You
if
know?
that would have been me laying out that page, I would have taken the top illustration, made it bigger, and then put all that text on the left side. And
Down here.
well, no, on the left side, all the dead space, I would have moved it up because if you take that panel, put it on the left, and then put that first text block on the right of it, then you could run all that other text on the right of it too, and make that panel probably about 15% bigger. I don't
Right.
know, just me. But I mean, I'm not going to second guess. I'll tell you what, though, in terms of production, um, usually when you're typesetting a paperback, it's just pages and pages of text.
Yeah.
That are it's a very easy job. This all had to be typeset in 1971
Yep.
with using phototypositor type machines and galley proofs and a lot of cutting and pasting and
Oh,
um,
this is a hell of a lot of work. That's why I think one of the contributing things for its failure is whatever extra costs that had to come in because people were not prepared to just take the paperback, just take the paperback, lay it out, and print it,
right.
and make, these are selling for 75. This is 25 cents? No, 75 cents. So the going rate for these books, both of them, 75 cents.
Yeah.
So maybe 13 cents to put this whole thing together cost, physical cost for it, and then labor another like 23 cents, if that. And then you're distributing them around to every airport and newsstand and bookstore. So, coming back on it, but maybe this cost close to 50 cents to produce, you
Yeah,
know.
who knows? I mean, if there was no number two and there was and it didn't kind of like launch the whole format. Wow, look at that.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, I mean,
But
I'll put Starling in there when I see that.
yeah, yeah,
Neil
yeah, yeah,
Adams,
yeah, yeah.
Starlin, and Gil Kane. They were the
Yeah.
like the killers. And
Cosmic
look at that
cosmic
lady. The
space.
lady's knocked out, lying on a planet or
Yeah.
something.
No, 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 floating through space like a.
No, the one above. Gil Kane.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, Gil Kane, to me, he is the master of people lying down defeated. He does that better than anyone else. Whenever I want to swipe that, I always look up Gil Kane. Like the person is like sometimes foreshortened, but lying there defeated, and he's done it with everybody: Spider-Man, Green Lantern, the Atom, um, He's great. The way that those legs just kind of hang down there in airspace. Wait, go back a second. So I'm looking at the what's that left side? Oh, it's like it almost looks like it's cut off there. That left,
Yes,
you know,
this side here.
some of the yeah. So you wonder if they're reformatting this. Maybe they had to make some tough decisions and just chop some artwork away.
I think this is definitely a cut and paste up thing because he gets on the Wikipedia. It says so. Kane said Bantam paid him $3,500 for 120 pages, including the cover, all drawn, all written, drawn, and lettered in camera ready form, i.e., in completed form suitable to go immediately to the printing press. Wow. So he really ate all of the cost for putting this all together. Then I had to knock off for a week or two to make some additional money. So he didn't even make. Said Kane recalling having to draw 30 pages in 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think the art was this art is really kind of cut up stuff, and it's written. The imagery is being pulled off of whatever is going on in the Archie Goodwin story.
Right. Meanwhile, if you would have brought that, product to any comic company, they have the bullpen to be able to do all that cutting and pasting and cutting film and and laying things out. They might have even done it a little better. I mean, it looks a little stodgy because it was probably laid out and then goes down the line for the production workers, in like, little blocks of text that they're like, it comes off the machine, they cut it, they rule it, they lay it out and they strip it in and it's just like so squared and so, stodgy. So it's a very interesting piece that you got there.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, on here it says, though Bantam had envisioned a series of 8 books, the publisher halted plans after the first sold less well than expected. And Kane goes on to explain that there was a stacking of the books. So they were planning on doing 2 books and then having the second one in the can to be able to get on the rack. And then a third one, he would be already in production. But they only held on the first book and then it just pooed out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just, a lot of visionary, both from the writer and artist, and packaging, and Bantam Books for obviously taking a chance here. But you got to think back then. Even nowadays, people are very conformed to their media being their media. In other words, if I'm going to read a really good sword and sorcery paperback, then I'm going to buy it, and when I open it, it's just going to be page after page. If I'm going to go and buy a comic book, I'm going to grab the comic book and I'm going to flip through the pages, and it's going to have that. So to try to marry these two worlds was just absolutely admirable. But I'm going to go and say that people were probably picking these up and going, ugh, what is this? Like literally, is it a comic? Is it and just not having any reference point in order to take a chance on it.
Yeah.
There's 75 cents. Their 75 cents went to Thundar, Man of Two Worlds, which is also, I think, what, 300 and some
Well, it
pages? I
sounds
don't know.
like
It's
Gil
only
Kane
200
was trying
pages.
to be a man of two worlds.
Yeah.
Gil Kane also struck out. Um, I think it was during the '70s. It might have been later, but he tried to do a syndicated strip too.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
called Starhawks, and
Yep.
it seems like the poor bastard was like stuck in this rut with Marvel and DC, and was trying all these other things. He probably heard of people that made a fortune and controlled their own IP, and they got up in the morning, did whatever they wanted to do, and so he tried these different things, but
Well, he wanted to be a Hal Foster or a Alex Raymond. I mean, that was always what people sought after when it came to comics, is that a muckabout in comic books, Marvel, DC, but I will make it as a big one, with a syndicated comic strip. Everybody in the 70s, and I think even into the 80s, beginning of the 80s, had something syndicated that they were, Roy Thomas and Buscema had a Conan. I could just go on. There was Romita had a Spider-Man. They were trying to lock into, that big money, because the newspapers were still the biggest thing that was selling media wise, because you don't even have Newsweek magazine or People magazine, so you got to get
right,
everything from the local
yeah,
newspaper. So the distributors were paying big bucks to have that comic strip in the pages of their newspaper.
there was a lot of people. The magazine space was very competitive, but you have to remember that for decades, the number one, everyone thinks like, what's the number one selling magazine in the U.S.? Or like People magazine or something like that, or Newsweek or Time. No, the number one selling magazine in the U.S. was always TV Guide, and then after
Yes.
that, it was the National Enquirer,
Yeah. Yeah.
those rags. So,
Yeah.
it's a very fickle public, and content is
Yep.
content, but there, the idea of a monthly and versus a weekly, versus a daily, like a daily strip. It's everyone's hoping for the multiplicative effect, like, oh, I have a syndicated strip. I mean, Gil Kane at this part at this time of his career, he was doing some of the best comics ever made. He was doing Spider-Man, he was doing the Gwen Stacy trilogy, but he wouldn't stay on it for that long. He did Green Lantern for a while. He did Captain Marvel, that whole thing. He did a lot of great interiors, but he was also a cover guy. He was like one of the most
Yeah.
killer cover guys for Marvel, and that's always great when you're an artist, because you're never tied down to interiors, and you could always just stay kind of flexible. All right, I'll do a cover that'll take me a day or two, and then I'll work on something else. But you got some great stuff there.
Yeah. So definitely wanted to, like you said, these are pretty expensive to get a hold of. That's why I didn't want to crack the spine if I was to resell it. But yeah, you see one, pick it up. I think it's a treasure, especially if you're into like cosmic, sword and sorcery, science fiction stuff. Like you said, Starlin and um, you know, it's just good. You're not going to lose, with this.
Better than
So,
average art, and
oh God, way better. Yeah.
storytelling, composition, poses, all that great stuff.
Right.
All right. Well, if we're moving on to me here, I got something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a short stack here. Um, so I have a whole box on the side of me that I have yet to get through. There's two black baggies, which must have been two different visits to two different comic shops, and then all these loose ones that I just threw in the box, plus this whole eBay package here too that I have. So I'm just working through my acquisitions, and you will let me know if there's anything here that you want me to do a single issue breakout of. In which case, I won't look inside, but we're gonna start off here with these are all dollar comics I got when I was in Orlando and Daytona and places like that. The Anticipator. This looks like a power comic. It's put out by
Great cover.
yeah,
I love that cover.
it looks like Fantasy Comics. Um, by Stedman and Scott, and I'm wondering if Stedman is ringing the bell. But let's see. So, oh, Clay Stedman. Oh yeah. So Brent Wilson. The Anticipator is 1996, published by Fantasy Comics, publisher Adam Stedman, Chattanooga. Um, it says all biblical names are taken from the Holy Bible, King James Version.
Okay.
Wow. and
You got.
the, the comic company, yeah, it was printed in Chattanooga, but the comic company is out of Chickamauga, Georgia.
Woo.
So yeah, there's some kind of like interesting
Oh
biblical
wow.
thing.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
Photoshop colorization inside. Um, you got some typesetting here. Um, a lot of standing around. I'm seeing,
Already.
this guy looks so evil and everything, but it's a lot of standing around. I see a lot of dead space. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not loving it. These tones are all extremely dark. It's probably better on camera than it is in real life. These are all very, very dark, and you can't hardly see any contrast. Some empty space here. Um, I don't even know what this is. Brought to you by Fantasy Comics, featuring the hottest comic characters. What's this? Is this a mistake? What the hell
That's
am I doing?
their logo brand, bro.
This is their logo. Oh, it's an F. Right. So this is just a
Is
wasted.
this a mistake?
This is just a wasted page. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean this is obviously a comic that was being rushed out in order for
two
it to
pages
get
wasted in the
to get
middle.
to get that to get that image comic money, out of the distribution, but there was nobody buying this, unfortunately.
Right. I mean,
But
the characters taken from the Bible, and this, everything's a pinup. You know,
yeah, it's a shame.
I would like this if a couple different things were going on. Like it wasn't so posy, it wasn't so like like what am I trying to say? Just like there's no
Static?
yeah, static. There's no camera angles here.
Nope. Yep.
Yeah. So this is gonna be a pass on me. So
Yeah.
the anticipator is not very anticipated, but
Do
maybe
not anticipate.
Stedman did something better later on. Next, the Metal Man. The Metal Man is one of my all-time favorites from my childhood. Um,
Yes.
the DC I spoke about a couple times, but this was a DC
Yes.
series, and it was started by Ross Andrew on art. And here we're seeing this looks like just like Gil Kane. Oh, it is Gil Kane. So look at this, Gil Kane insides here. This is an early
Oh,
Gil
look at
Kane.
that. That's a great compliment to my Blackmark.
Right.
That's
I mean,
awesome, Jake.
this is
Great
Gil Kane
surprise.
years before,
What
maybe
what check what's the year? What's the year?
68. So
Oh,
uh,
okay. Okay.
maybe like 3 or 4 years before, but he probably did
Yeah.
this in, yeah. Um, so Doc, Tina, Mercury, Gold, Lead, Iron, Tin, and Nameless. I learned so much about metallurgy and you know science from reading this that my middle school science teacher was so impressed that I knew what malleable meant, and I knew what conductivity was, and all this stuff, and it was all from reading Metal Man comics. Look, here's Iridia, this robot that's invented, and Platinum, aka Tina, gets really pissed off. They have a cat fight here. So
Oh.
Gil Kane was just knocking this stuff out, and I would really recommend Metal Man. I think this is after Ross Andrew because a young Ross Andrew starts out doing the art. I think with Metal Man #1, or it might have been one of those like premiere showcase things. Um, we got some we have a Billy cartoon here at the end, but yeah, this was a treat to see Gil Kane. You can see the beginnings here of some foreshortening and perspective, some machinery, a little sparse on some of the backgrounds, but very colorful. Just like it was just always a pleasure for me to read the stories of Metal Men. This I picked up because it was $1. Stormwatch #1, Jim Lee, and I wanted to point out to you, it says 195, but these were just $1. I wanted to point out to you that Image comics are worthless, right? It,
I don't like I've been carrying a torch lately for their aesthetic kind of coming back. I really do
well,
predict that their
they were very
aesthetic is gonna.
influential to the kids who were young then. But in terms of collectability, you can go in and you can get,
Oh, but they printed so many, Jake. That was the problem. They
yeah, they
weren't
killed,
printing a hundred
they,
thousand. They were printing 1 million.
right, they killed their own secondary market by
Yep,
flooding the zone,
yep,
and
yep. That
nobody.
I'll agree with you on. I will
And
agree with you on.
when I was down in this one shop, it was just boxes and boxes and boxes. Stormwatch number one, number two, number three, number four. Savage Dragon number one, number two, number three, number four, and then just on and on. Just name what was it? Wetworks and Strike Force and Silvestri and all of them. One, two, three, four, all $1. So that's what I'm trying to say here. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't get into the art myself. Jim Lee's probably the best one, of all of them. Maybe
Agreed.
McFarlane and but it's just
Silvestri, Mark Silvestri.
so. But yeah, I mean they're all good in their own way. But it's just like So there's that. Here we go. Here we go now into some thick books. I got
Masamune Shirow.
Appleseed 2 and 3. Um, so are you a fan here? Because
Love it,
I
love it, love it, love it,
love
love
it.
it,
Yeah, I was a little out of
love it.
school here with this, so I caught up and I gave these a good look and a good flip.
Oh,
The pages are turning yellow. Really
oh,
good example of action and robotics and technology and characters. They have the cutesy manga faces and the
it's all
characters, but
right.
they also had a
It's all
lot of
right.
story.
Superior sequential storytelling.
Right.
Superior. Like
Especially, yeah,
top 20. Top 20 in the world, I would put Masamune Shirow at.
right. Well, especially of the day, it really pushed the whole thing
Oh, still
forward.
today. Did you name somebody off the bat right now making comics that's like this? Name
Well, yeah,
them.
I mean,
Put it in the comments below. Put it in the comments below because
yeah, put in the comments
I,
below.
I just
I mean,
even
I
you
always,
flipping through, these books makes me want to go downstairs and dig out my Appleseed and my Orion and my Black Magic
it's
and
so funny. I mean,
God, so amazing
it's just a
stuff,
great. You could just tell
so amazing.
a great hand here.
Mm.
Very very good. Robotics and everything. But then all of a sudden they'll get into some nudity for a couple of pages. Um,
Yeah, well, that's Japan.
yeah,
But
right. And
you also have to give credit for the fact that it is a studio that's manufacturing a comic book. This is not all the hands of Masamune Shirow, but he's obviously like a Tomo, a guiding force. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like he has a very very specific vision in how the storytelling needs to be played out. So anybody coming in filling behind it has to really stay to that standard. And that's what I mean about superior sequential comic book making
yeah.
is it's like a director. It's like a director. And you
This
can't.
is great here. You got they're in this like this kind of like dystopian world. You got all
Yeah,
these teams.
for all
Look
the
at this.
talking they do for page and page, you just want to stay on the page because you're looking at all the other pieces and traits, and
Look at this.
it's
The
just
Statue of
fantastic.
Liberty. All
Oh,
these angles. Yeah. So a buck a
come on.
piece. A buck a piece. And what is this like?
Mm,
200 pages.
mm.
250 pages.
Man, that's a grab. That's a steal.
Here's some more Gil Kane in the Crypt of Shadows. So these I believe are reprints at this stage, 25 cents. So this is like the 70s, and originally presented in Suspense number 16. So these could have been from the 40s, 50s, who knows? But they just take it and they reissue it. They put a Gil Kane cover on it, and then boom, 25 cents. Um, Right? What is this? This bar is here, and then his hand is right there. I don't know. His hand coming through the
He's
bar.
reaching through.
His leg is
He's
coming
reaching
through the
through.
bar, and his head is
He's trying to
halfway
get
through.
out. He's trying to
He's
get
locked
out.
in with a fiend. So
Ah!
yeah. So the interesting thing to me
No!
is that some of this stuff is like maybe they don't tell you what year this was originally presented, but some of the stuff might be like EC Comics era, and it was probably all recolored fresh for this,
Yeah.
right? And that's when
Yeah.
things get interesting because it makes this a moment in time. Here we're going to the power of the genie, a different artist. This guy's kind of like a graceful style here. Somebody cut out the coupon for the karate.
Yeah, baby. Somebody out there has got some like
They
tiger palm.
sent away for the judo savate guide.
Oh yeah,
Oh man,
killer.
if I would have known that, I never would have bought it. Um, so yeah, Tales of Suspense. My guess is that this stuff is reprinted from the from the 50s maybe, but yeah, I love the colors and what they're doing here. So I don't know if you're super comic geek, so that you read these kind of like old reprints, repackaged stuff with these little Twilight Zone stories, but I love these
Love them.
things. I love
Love
these
it.
things. And
Love it.
some of these artists didn't get their due back in the day, so it's nice to see that they got reprinted. They didn't get a dime, but
Cranking out. Cranking out.
Marvel was cranking. um Elf Lord, this is Barry Blair, right? And
Yep.
yeah, so this is like coming off the heels of Elf Quest, and story by Gordon Derry and Barry Blair, art by Barry Blair. It's a full color, which I didn't know. They're airbrushing in here, which I wouldn't have guessed. Some of these colors are a little harsh. Looking at these guys' noses here, um, and dark, right? So you don't know really how they're going to print. But it's pretty ballsy to just like airbrush on your art and go to print like that. They probably gave an original to the comic publisher, who then made four color separations. So that means every page costs you know like three times more than if it was just black and white camera ready. I'm not loving these colors. They're really dark. Some of them are garish. Barry Blair, I've never been like a huge fan of.
Nah. Nah.
And it seems like he was really capitalizing on what Wendy Pini had really been doing as in kind of like a groundbreaking way. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't love this, but I have seen some Barry Blair stuff that I like better. This is Elf Lord #4, Volume 2. Aircell is a company that I do collect.
Yep.
But this was weird. For me. In terms of the art, the production. It looks like it might have even been drawing with a ballpoint. Like doing the original art.
Flare.
Yeah, a flare or a ballpoint. Some of this art is a little different. It doesn't look like the traditional variable stroke, brush ink or dip pen. Um, I don't know how he gets to all this stuff. Really, really dark originals here. It might be that he did the original art and then Xeroxed it so that he could color it. You know, because how do you turn this in otherwise if you're just on the indie level?
Right.
Here, this is a little bit nicer here. I like this sequence
Good
a little bit.
action.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit better here. And then here, Barry Blair has a lot of these little young boys, in captivity at knife point, wearing loincloths. Um, Barry Blair also got into the adult markets here and there, but a lot of this stuff is really just kind of on the fringes of mature versus you know a little more adult. But yeah, that was a quick flip through of Elf Lord, and then here's a backup story here by a cartoonist. Um, and I'll say one thing: Barry Blair, he had a really long run with Aircell and the other indies that he worked for. Um, Here's Hasu in Adventurers #5, and this is a beautiful painted cover.
Amazing.
Uh, and inside,
Airbrush.
we're going into these grayscales that we
Is
saw.
that
I think
Ken? Is that Ken Burrell? I
it
think it's
looks
Ken
like the
Burrell.
same artist as Axe Bad
Oh,
Axe. Looks like the exact
Bad
same
Axe.
artist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Ken Burrell.
Let's see, art by Ken Burroughs. Yep, and cover by.
Yeah.
So we still have yet to interview Kent, um,
Yeah, he's been a
but
bit evasive, but I'll tell you, if it follow him on Instagram. He's still at it. He's doing some great. He does RPG illustrations. Is
this is
primary that,
great.
and he's an instructor. And I do believe he's in Canada. I think is where
This
he's
is
at. But
great.
anyhow,
This is
It's
great.
just a
I'm
real
going to I'm not gonna
unsung.
go through this
Don't do
whole
it.
one.
Yeah,
I think
don't do it.
I'm gonna put adventurers on the side so that when I have all
Yes.
my adventures together, we can do a breakout on that. And because I didn't know Kent Burrows was on the inside, and I just love his gray work, his gray
Yes,
scale,
me
gray
too.
tone, just
Me too.
lush, and then really good, like splitting the faces in half with a dark and light balance. Great
Yeah.
stuff. I'd
Yeah.
like to see some more females from him. A lot of his adventurers are male dominated, but of course, Bad Axe has the female,
That's
which is
probably the writer's fault.
well, yeah, whoever came up with the concept. Here's the Realm from Arrow. Does this ring a bell? Did you do a Realm issue on your last
Love
pack?
it. I love that comic series. I remember collecting it because it brought the two worlds of mine together. Ninja and sword and sorcery. It's
Mm,
just
Well,
it's amazing stuff.
so
It's
here's the
amazing
Realm
stuff.
number three. Yeah,
Yep.
I thought you had
Yep.
one of these recently. I want to point
Yep.
out that he's got some Nike shorts underneath here. So he's breaking the proscenium. Um,
basketball shorts.
Yeah, very angular, art style here,
Yeah.
and you are crossing a lot of a lot of genres here. You
Yeah.
got the
Great
dwarves and the
fantasy. Great
right.
fantasy stuff.
So,
Yeah.
just take a poke inside to finish out here. Plot by Ralph Griffith, script Stuart Kerr, pencils Guy Davis, inks Sandy Schreiber, and letters Vince Locke. So, black and white indie. One thing that it has going for it is there's great black and white balance and interplay on the page,
Yeah.
right? The
Really well
line
done.
work, the spot blacks, um, not too
Sound
heavy.
effects.
The sound effects not too heavy on the text. You have different shapes of balloons here. You're carrying a lot of action here. Um, some different hatching styles, which kind of reminds you of some undergrounds, right? But then also you
Yeah.
got the splatter, so they're playing around with lots of different types of drafting here. Then you get this real angular style. They have some characters here. Cross hatching. I'm against most cross hatching. It's hard to pull off and not look like like an underground. Here we're seeing some tones. I mean, I do cross hatching, obviously, in pencils, but I usually would call it contoured hatching. Where it's not just
Right.
like lines going in at perpendicular angles, like this. I mean, I would rather just hatch, but if you can pull it off, I mean, sometimes you cross hatch where you want to have it like more shaded, but these kind of intermediate tones to me, it's just distracting, because otherwise, you have this scene going on here, just some drapery and some textures, but then you're like, oh, this cross hatching, to me, it just gives me a nervous tick. Um, so yeah, there's some action here, and this looks like a pretty decent comic. A little bit cartoony for me. The way they draw the noses in particular. Some of this came out kind of dark. Like this is really asking a lot for the customer to be able to tell what's going on. And on my screen, it looks even lighter than it does here. Um, if I would have known this ahead of time, I would have went into my Longitude and lightened this up. But I'll give these guys some credit for getting a lot out on the page. There's a lot of value here on the page, and there's no ads so far. So this is
Solid book. Solid
Ar-
series too.
Arrow Comics,
Yeah.
and it's somewhere between indie, amateurish, and the burgeoning styles of the day. This came out in 1986, so this is a little bit early in the game, because this indie revolution went on well through the 90s, and yeah, looks pretty decent. This is issue number 3, so I don't know if people want to follow this, but Arrow Comics, no ads. Um, the average paper, the paper aged. It wasn't like coated or you know, archival quality. So it just naturally showing its age from 86 to now. And then you got your letters page here. So, another great indie comic. And I love looking at the ads in the back. We got Night Streets, which I still don't think I picked up a copy of. I don't think I have a copy of Night Streets. I think this did come out. And then you got some Ninja Turtles here. They're plugging Comics Plus in Dearborn, Michigan. So talk about small press. They have a little ad here for your local comic dealer. And apparently this was a wraparound cover. I didn't know where they're
Beautiful. Look at that
yeah.
ninjas. Love
Look
me
at
some
that.
ninja.
Ninjas and spiral staircases and dwarves and all kinds of magnificent realms. So, Kurt,
Cool.
that is my report. And,
All right.
Adventurers is going to be coming up in a future episode.
All right, cool. All right, well, that's another successful comics that influence episode.
We
Just to
did it.
remind everybody, we are making a comic book called Turbo Pit Fighter. We have a second teaser, first 12 pages of the story with a nice spread of back material going on in the world of Turbo. You can get this from kurtbrugel.com, as well as we do indie creator exchange, which means you can exchange a comic with us, and then we would invite you on for an interview, and we'll talk
Yeah, we
comics
review
together.
your work and you review our work, and
Yep, yep.
we compare influences, and history, and sometimes the tools of the trade, and talk about how you get marketing off the ground, and all. We want to find out what's going on in every little corner of the biz.
Right. So, with that being said, I don't have anything else. Let these people get back to reading comics, making them if they choose. What do you got for them on the out, Jag?
Uh, just tune in next time, folks. And if you're binge watching, don't forget to watch the Making of Turbo Pit Fighter, which is our flagship. That's it.
Awesome. See you next Sunday.
Bye, everybody.